In U.S. Appeals Question 86, two boats on starboard tack were approaching a finishing mark, with the blue boat overlapped inside of the red boat when the first boat reached the zone around the pin end of the finish line. Because the red boat had not given the blue boat sufficient mark room, the blue boat touched the pin. The blue boat protested the red boat and then continued to take a penalty, crossing the finish line a second time, which became the basis for their score in the race. Was their protest upheld or dismissed? Could the blue boat be scored based on their first crossing of the finish line? Here are the relevant racing rules. Under Rule 18.2b, the red boat was required to give the blue boat mark room because the blue boat was overlapped inside of them when they entered the zone around the pin, which is a mark the boats were required to leave on the same side under the definition of mark. Under the definition of mark room, the red boat was required to give the blue boat sufficient room to pass the mark without touching the mark. The protest committee disqualified the red boat for breaking Rule 18.2b. As for the blue boat's score, the U.S. Appeals Committee was asked whether the protest committee could instruct the race committee to score the blue boat based on their first crossing of the finish line. Although the blue boat touched the pin after their bow crossed the finish line, they broke Rule 31, which says that a boat may not touch a finishing mark after finishing. They were, however, exonerated under Rule 43, because they only broke Rule 31 as a consequence of the red boat not giving them the mark room they were entitled to. However, Rule 44.2 says that when a boat takes a penalty at or near the finish line, their hull shall be completely on the course side of the line before they can finish. In addition, under the definition of finish, a boat has not finished if after crossing the finish line they take a penalty under Rule 44.2. Thus, the blue boat cannot be scored based on their first crossing of the finish line. The committee was also asked whether the blue boat was entitled to redress by getting scored based on their first crossing of the finish line. Under Rule 62, a boat is only entitled to redress when their score was made significantly worse through no fault of their own. Because they voluntarily took the penalty and none of the other conditions for redress were met, they were not entitled to redress. In summary, a boat that touches a finishing mark and then takes a penalty does not finish until they cross the finishing line after taking their penalty. Exoneration does not provide for canceling a penalty a boat has taken voluntarily or for compensating them for distance, time, or places lost in taking the penalty. A boat that voluntarily takes a penalty and thereby worsens their score is not entitled to redress. Were any of these findings surprising to you? Comment below and let us know what other scenarios you'd like to see. Subscribe and check out our playlists for related cases. Thanks for watching.